Alright, I'm going to go ahead and change the oil on this bike. Most of you guys that are probably watching this know how to change the oil, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. It's a 14mm socket. I already broke it loose, so just get the oil pan in the way. I had the bike out running a little bit, so it should be warm still. Help the oil drain a little bit better. It's a long drain plug. And the oil is pretty black in it. So we're going to drain the oil, and then I'm going to pick up some more oil for it. It calls for SAE 30. So I'm going to pick up some oil. We'll fill it up before we run it again the next time, and call it a day. I don't guess you really want to watch oil drain. Alright, on draining the oil, I think I said it was a 14mm. It's a 17mm to take the drain plug out. It's also a 17mm to take the kickstand out. This kickstand's disgusting, all rusted up. I'm going to try to hit it with a wire wheel, knock the rust off of it, and get it cleaned up and paint it. So it looks pretty bad. Alright, here's how I'm going to hit this. I put this in my little Franklin clamping workstation. That way I can turn it on and have my hands free to work with the kickstand. I also recommend you use a shield. I wear glasses, so it's kind of like having safety glasses, but I've had these little wire pieces come flying off in every direction, and they could probably get under your glasses, and really don't want to screw your eyes up. Knock this rust off. Alright, as you can see, after just a couple minutes here, it's knocking the rust off pretty good. I'm going to continue to hit this, and then I'll come back when I'm done. Alright, here it is after hitting it with the grinding wheel. It's knocked all the surface rust off of it pretty much. A couple little areas I'm going to have to try to work in with some sandpaper and get myself, but it should be ready to paint. Alright, I sprayed it with some satin black. I didn't want it to be too shiny. Back looks pretty good. Gonna let it dry probably overnight, and then we'll put it on tomorrow. One last thing before I take the bike out was when I took this side cover off, and I just wanted to say, get you one of these impact screwdrivers. These old screws on here will strip out really easy. Just take you one of these impact drivers, put on these screws, hit it with a hammer, and it'll spin those, spin the drive, and the impact will give it enough where it'll turn those screws and you won't strip them. So just, if you're working on any old motorcycle cars, get you one of these things. They are great. I'm not sure what brand this particular one is I use, but I love it. I've had it for a long time, and it works great. It comes with different size bits for Phillips or this standard flathead, but works great. Don't try to take these bolts out without having one of these, or you will strip them, and then you're in for a lot of trouble trying to get them out. And get you some of the man, the bird is still stuck in this garage. JIS screwdrivers. I think that's what it is, Japanese Industrial Standard or something like that, screwdrivers. different sizes. You get 2 different sizes to fit most of the motorcycles, Japanese motorcycles. So just kind of a little added tip. Alright, here's the next steps that I'm doing when doing this oil change. I had looked up online and seen some things about them talking about an oil filter on these. And so I decided to go ahead and take the side cover off. Don't know if that might have been a mistake because some parts fell out and I'm not sure where they go, so I'm going to have to have this little piece fall out and a spring that's in here. Now the oil pan, you know, this part of the engine doesn't look too bad. I thought it would be a little more gummed up than what it was. We have, I guess this is the oil filter right here. I'm going to pull that out in a minute and clean that. And let's see if I can get the camera in here a little bit closer and see that. But a little oil filter sits right here. This is part of the clutch assembly, and I'm going to have to look up to see how that goes back together. And it looks almost like it's missing a pin here, but maybe not. I'm going to have to look up on the manual, see if I can find a manual online, because I do not have a manual for this bike. But just kind of see how it goes back together, make sure I have everything going together in the right order to put it back on, because I've never taken one of these apart before. I did have to remove the foot pegs to get the side cover off and the Kickstarter, and we'll see if we can get it on past this brake, this foot brake here. I might have to go ahead and pop it off just to get everything to line back up and make sure everything stays in place when I go to put it back together. Alright, I'm going to clean this up and then I'll be back. They do say, you know, on the one book that I did look up or write up, they said do not use any kind of solvent in cleaning inside of here. Just use a paper towel, wipe it out. Also, when they clean the filter out, they say do not use anything flammable, of course. But so I'm going to clean that out and I'll be back. Okay, I'm pulling the oil filter out, and here's a little oil filter screen. You can see it does have some debris in it, a little bit of gunkiness. So I'm just going to clean this up and get it ready to go back in. Alright, here's the filter all cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and put it in. Just goes in this little slot here. Alright, it's back in there. Alright, I think I got this figured out. This little plate here, the spring goes on, and then this rides on here. I had to lean the bike sideways, so hopefully all that will stay on when I go to put the side cover on. And alright, got it cleaned out pretty good. See if we can get this back on without this piece falling off. And I move the camera back a little. It might be right where it's at. I might be in the way though, seeing it. So we're just going to drop this down. Line up the gear shifter mechanism. Trying to slide it on here and get all this cables out of the way. Alright, I think we got it on there. I'm going to check it and we'll put the bolts in it. Alright, I actually got the cover on. I didn't record it because I was just kind of doing a test fit to see if I had everything on right, and it just kind of fell into place. And that little piece in there for the clutch, that little bearing piece that flops around with the spring, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get on. So since I got it to snap on once, I wasn't going to take it back off. But what I did to get it on, I took the nut off of here, put the that piece of the clutch adjuster on first, got it all lined up, and then I put the case, lined the case up, and it slid right into place. And just had to make sure I lined that hole up with the gear shift lever, and it just, or the kickstart lever, and it just all kind of fell into place. Was actually pretty easy once I took this nut off and the adjuster and snapped it on that way. So I'm going to put the screws on, button it up, and then we'll add some oil to it, and then we're going to look into adjusting the clutch, because I'll have to do that now that I took it off. So let me put the rest of the screws in and put the oil in and be back with you. Alright, to adjust the clutch, you're going to need a 14mm wrench, box end wrench, and a screwdriver. So since I've had this off, this is already loose. So you turn the screwdriver to the right to loosen it, and then you turn it back counterclockwise till you feel resistance, and then you turn it about 1/8 of a turn, and then you lock it down. So you just hold your screwdriver in place so it's not turning, and lock that nut down, and that should be properly adjusted. So we'll take it out and ride it here in a minute once we get everything else back together. Added the oil, don't see anything leaking. That underneath was there before I added the oil. And I put the foot pegs back on, 13mm 4 screws if you need to take that off. And so now I'll just put the Kickstarter back on, and then it should be ready. I do need to put the kickstand on that I painted yesterday, so I'm going to put the kickstand back on and take it out for a little test spin. Alright, I'm going to put the kickstand back on, and trying a little method that I'd seen somewhere before about taking washers and sticking between a heavy spring to make it easier to stretch to get on you know, something like a kickstand like this. So I'm going to use that spring, oops, with the washers in it, and I'm going to see if I can stretch it easier down here to get on the kickstand with the washers. Take 2. So I'm going to try to stretch it down here to get on the kickstand and see if it'll be a little easier with the washers in it. And not totally scratch up my kickstand, even though I'm not really concerned about that. This is a dirt bike. Come on, pop on there. There we go. It's on. And so then you can just, supposed to be able to pull the washers right out. I'm going to do it with a pair of pliers here so I don't pinch myself. There you go. And the kickstand's on. And painted. Looks better than the rest of the bike. So, just a little tech tip. Hopefully that helps someone. You know, this spring wasn't real hard, so you know, if it was a bigger, heavier duty spring, then you know that little process might come in more handy than this, but it worked. Seemed to help a little bit. So that's my tech tip of the day. So I'm going to take the bike out, test drive it, see if the clutch is adjusted properly, and we'll finish things out here. Alright, the next thing I plan on doing to the bike is I took the shock off. This shock is pretty rusty and I don't think it can be saved. I'd like to keep it the chrome look, but I'm gonna just hit this surface rust with a grinder, get it all off, and I'm just gonna use the same satin black that I used on the kickstand to paint it and get it to look a little bit better. Keep the plastic, clean it up, but I'm gonna keep that red, give it the classic look of the Honda here. But like I said, this shock is just in such bad shape. I want to get it looking a little bit nicer. Show you how I did this shock. Here's the shock from the passenger side. It's got a lot of the surface rust on the inside of it, and so I just put some duct tape around this little plastic cover here to protect it from the wire wheel, and I just put the wire wheel in a vise so it's easier to hang on to. And then always wear some eye protection with these wire wheels, even if you wear glasses. I use one of these face shields from Harbor Freight along with my Harbor Freight grinder with the wire wheel on it. But that way, just these little wire pieces come flying out and fly all over the place. That way you're not getting a piece stuck in your face, which would be for a pretty bad day. So I'm going to hit this on this wire wheel and clean it up. I'll show you how I did it. Alright, so that's how I did it. You can see it came out pretty good. I will polish it up a little bit with some metal polish and we'll see how it looks when it's done. I just put the duct tape around here to try to protect this plastic cover, even though I hit it a couple times on this one. Hopefully it'll be okay, and we'll polish this up a little bit. Alright, so the next step, I just take a terry cloth, and I'm using McGuire's metal polish here. Just put a big gunk on there, big pile of it, and rub it around. And take the rag and polish it up this way. Okay, did a little polishing on it. You can still see some of the little pits in it, and it didn't come out perfect. I don't think I'm going to worry about it. This is a trail bike. It's not a show bike. I figure it's going to get used, it's going to get abused some. But while I have the shock off and out of the way, I'm going to work on cleaning that wheel up. It was not fun doing the other one, so I'm not looking forward to it. But to tell you the truth, I wasn't going to do this back one, but the front one looks decent. The back one looks terrible. I've got it up here, got the shock off. Why not suffer through this? So I'm going to hit the wheels with probably a little bit of sandpaper on the spokes just to knock the major crud off and rust. And then I'll probably go back over it with steel wool and polish them up just a little bit. So yeah. Alright, I have the wheel cleaned up as good as it's going to get, and getting ready to put the shock back on. I just sat it back up here. Looks a little better. Doesn't look brand new or restoration, but that's not really the look I'm going for. I'm just trying to save as much of the patina and the look of this bike as I can. I want to keep it as much original as I can. I love when bikes and things are original because they can only be original once. So I'm going to leave this the way it is. Put the bolts on and get this all buttoned up here. Whoops. And get it back together, and then take the other shock off and probably do the same thing to it. Just clean it up and you know, try to make it look a little nicer. I'm using a 3/4 box inch wrench on this nut up here to hold this upper shock mount. You don't have to get monkey strong with it. And the washer, small nut up here. I think this one was a 12, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, it was a 12mm up at the top. Like I said, you don't have to crank down on it, just snug it up. Get the lower on. And the lower was a 14, I believe. Yeah, the lower nut is a 14mm. There you go. I think that looks a little bit better. Stand back and look at it a little bit. Yeah, I like it better than if it was black. I think it gives it a little bit of pop along with the exhaust cover there, and the, man, I cannot think today, the brake pedal and things like that that are off chrome as well, and the wheels. So I think it gives it a good look. I think I'm going to go with that.